Welcome to Facing the Nation for Friday, December 6th, 2024. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Call up a neighbor, call up a friend, tell them Facing the Nation is on today. And like every other program, we have some stuff that we need to talk about today. So you can't afford to miss today's show. Today's show, we want to highlight some information. I teamed today's program Rejecting the PPP Lies, and it's for a reason. So call up a neighbor, call up a friend, tell them Facing the Nation is on. Of course, you can get us on all our social media platforms, the People's National Congress Reform page on Facebook, the APNUFC page on Facebook, our APNU YouTube channel as well, and a few other platforms. And of course, on Channel 6, on your local TV. Today's guest is no stranger to the program, and I just want us to get right into it today. He is none other than Mr. Shurwayne Holder. He is the chairman of the People's National Congress Reform. He is also the shadow minister of natural resource. And we just want to welcome him today as we get this program rolling today. Welcome, Mr. Holder.
Hi, Shaneika. Thanks for having me. Good day to you and your viewing audience.
All right, it is good to have you. Today I want us to dig into some of the, more recent things that have been happening. I mean, we usually talk about a lot of things and run out of time, when we start here on the program. But today I want to be able to share a few videos with our audience and to have us discuss these videos, because I believe it's time that we not allow the PPP to just be able to go on social media and say whatever they want, whether it is a lie, whether it is a bluff, it's a makeup. And are allowed to get away with it, because of recent I've been seeing lots of things peddling, and more you're realizing that the PPP is up to nothing more than an optical game. In every angle you twist and turn, whether it is the president running around, the VP talking nonsense, or another minister, they are playing a serious optic game with the citizens of Guyana, rather than telling the truth and getting the work that should be done actually done. So I want to, before I get to, the issue of one of the ministers that would have made several TikTok videos, I want us to talk a little about a statement that was made by the sitting AG. And I saw under the comments on this video that persons were very dismayed with what he was saying, and for good reason. I'll ask my operator to play the video of what the AG said.
Compulsorily acquire is one that is entrenched in the legal system of almost every democratic country in the world. Is an inherent power of the state. Is the same type of power that allows the state to own everything beneath the surface of the earth. So that if you own your property by title or transport, and some mineral is found beneath your property, the state owns that mineral, not you. Never mind you is your property. In the same way, you hold your title subject to the state's right to take it from you.
Now, this is Nandalal giving his explanation for what us in the opposition and many persons have been talking about from their entrance into government again. in the way in which they have been acquiring people's lands, I don't think at any point anybody made mention this is somehow illegal. But what we are talking about is the manner in which and the reason behind it is being done. We saw that in Mocha. We saw that on the East Bank at Friendship. We are now hearing of the Liverpool area and Peters Hall and so many other areas where the government is just going in and using, quote unquote, the law and taking the lands of persons without any care. We heard the excuses they gave when they were acquiring the land of the persons in Makkah. And then we saw that every explanation they give for acquiring that land not being so. And then we look on the opposite side, we see persons are doing exactly what they said the Moko residents were doing and the reason they had to remove them. So here it is. The sitting AG giving excuse and reason by law for the reckless, uncaring actions of the government when it comes to ordinary Guyanese citizens who would have acquired their lands, built it, and this is their excuse. Chairman.
You're absolutely right. And this has been the MO of the PPP government from 2020 to now, and even prior to 2015, if you trace back what they have done with certain projects and how they would have given certain properties to their friends and cronies. So this is basically a normal behavior from the People's Progressive Party. However, I think Anil is now carrying it up a notch, taking it up a notch to sort of legalize their what I deem to be their illegal behavior or illegal practice in terms of the way or the manner in which they would have acquired those properties. It is true that a government or any government or most governments around the world would have that kind of authority, but to acquire property for development, whether it's roads, whether it's to develop onshore oil and gas fields or golds, whatever mineral extraction might be below the earth or for whatever use they might have to acquire the land for. But the law prescribes some specific steps. It says clearly what has to happen or what has to be undertaken prior to the government obtaining that property. You first have to consult with the persons. It has to be reasonable. I should say it has to be reasonable or unavoidable. Unavoidable would be a better word, or both together, reasonable and unavoidable. From what I know, because if there are other means of running this road, instead of running it through someone's yard, you can go 20 feet away. There is some government reserve. No court will agree with you occupying that property by force, and so it has to be reasonable and unavoidable first and foremost. And then you have to consult with the persons. You have to do certain steps like you have to do any evaluation of the property. And mind you, one of the problems that we see occur, which would have occurred over the last 4 years, is that there is vast difference between what you give to one set of people or certain persons and some others. So there is that question as well, the question of equitable compensation. Let me put it that way. The compensation has to be and for me it has to cater as well for persons, not only the value of the property, but the discomfort, the distress that you're going to put those persons through. So there are a number of considerations before any government can acquire a property, but Nandalal is trying to simplify a very much more complex issue. It's not that easy for a government to just go and acquire land. In the case of the what's the area name where they're running a new harbor bridge?
Peters Hall.
Peters Hall, correct. In the case of Peters Hall, they seem to believe that they could acquire the property without adequate compensation or beginning that process. And that is what we see happening a lot, even over the river where they would have run the pipeline. I learned that you had that kind of issue there as well. So this kind of high-handed nature is illegal. I think a recent court ruling, a matter involving one of the occupants, one of the property holders in Peters Hall there, that would have come out in the court as well, that you have to settle on adequate compensation. You have to settle, both parties have to agree, because if you don't agree, then there are other prescribed steps as to what has to be done. Eventually, the court can make a decision, but there are steps if you can't agree. And so it is not a simplistic issue, or it is not quite accurate what Nandalal is saying there, or purported to say in that TikTok video. It's certainly sending the wrong message as it relates to the powers of the government and what they can do. And we know what this government has done. You've referred to it. In the case of Mocha, they would have made all sorts of legal and moral case for the persons to be removed from Cane. Is it Cane Grove? Cane View. Sorry. And in the end, those persons were nowhere in the path of the road. And now we see friends of the government being given that property to do whatever business, whatever construction. Now, it's totally unfair to those people. It's totally unfair to the citizens of this country. And so we will continue to expose them and expose the PPP for who they are and what they're doing.
All right. I have another video, because we know we have the minister with responsibility for housing and water has been on a show on TikTok, and I comment on some of the things that I'm now seeing surfacing on social media in regard to person's suggestion on why she is on a TikTok rampage of making all sorts of wild assertions, in my view. But I want to start out, I believe, with the video. Well, I'll have my operator play the video, because I have 3 of them that I want us to talk about. I'll have him play it and we'll get into it.
I'll get back to you. TikTok. Here's something that you didn't know. There's a lot of talk going on about biometrics, but what a lot of Guyanese don't know is that on election day, all of the polling staff, as well as every single polling agent representing each political party, is given a document called a Folio. This document is a colored document that has a photograph of every single elector who is on the voters list. It has their name, the ID card number, the address, and other details of each elector, so that every polling agent and GCOM staff can verify the identity of every elector on the list, even if they don't have an ID card to vote. This is one of the most significant measures to ensure that the elections are free and fair. The APNU AFC is using biometrics as a distraction from their bad policies and broken promises. And that is why they are bad for Guyana. And the PPPC remains the best choice.
You know, when I listen to these TikToks, Chairman, I usually have to laugh because it is the optics for me and the misinformation that is there, and you know, the trying to shadow the actual information that bothers me. As somebody who worked in polling stations myself for many years doing election, anybody who has had to go through the process of going to vote without an ID card can tell you that a folio in no form, fashion, or style can be some miraculous great measure for you to identify somebody. Because first off, a folio is basically a document that has a very tiny picture of those persons and their particulars. Now, the last local government election I will take, for example, every agent on the area I will give from Better Hope to LBI had a black and white copy of a folio. Every agent had a black and white copy of a folio. Now imagine, I don't know if my operator has the picture that we would have used to show what Jack Dio looked like in 2009 and what he looks like now. Bearing something like that in mind, how is it that you can, just because you could make a little TikTok, go to TikTok to tell people the folio is the best thing on the face of the earth, and somehow biometrics, which is a sure way of ensuring that the person who is coming to vote is the person, is somehow wrong? I don't understand it. Chairman.
Shaneika, you're absolutely right. Look, we had this folio system, this type of system, way back. I myself would have worked in the polling place. I would have been a presiding officer at one stage many elections back. I'm happy that you have a picture of the vice president, and now you see he's a popular guy, so we might know him, but there are many others that
what about other persons
might not be recognizable. Total strangers are not recognizable. But let me get back to the point. The system with the folio has clearly not worked for us. It has been wrong for ages. If it had worked, maybe we would not have had 47 boxes that could not be verified. You would recall on the East Coast. So clearly, whatever system exists, however they try to spin it, it has not been working. And we need a new system. We need a modern GCOM. We need a GCOM that operates strictly according to its mandate and in the best interest of all Guyanese, a GCOM that is transparent and accountable to the people of this country and not a particular party or whoever is in government. And that is what we're asking for. And so put aside the intention or the misinformation, I think the bigger issue here is the fact that the People's Progressive Party is putting up a great opposition towards the implementation of a system that can work for all of us, that can be fair, that will be transparent, that will ensure that only a voter only votes once.
Correct.
To ensure the identity as well of that voter, and that dead people or people overseas do not participate in the election if they're not in Guyana alive and well at the polling station, at the place of poll. And that is what we're asking for. So why is it that any government or any political party would want to oppose that?
Correct.
Now, the People's Progressive Party continues this talk about rigged elections And they try to pin that on the PNC and the APNU, and I see they're trying to pull in the AFC and everybody else. But these guys are the biggest riggers. If we're looking to implement a system, whatever the quarrel was, they have their claims, and the opposition, and in the opposition, we have our claims. And our claims could be verified and were verified by GCOM and by the entire world. Now you know that these were the issues in the last elections. Why not move to biometrics? Why not? So many countries, so many developed countries have implemented such a system. And clearly, in our context, in the Guyana context, we have a dire need for it to ensure that elections are free and fair, to ensure that there is no dispute that may lead to violence or any disruption of our society after any elections. It is time that we move into that direction as an oil-rich nation now who can afford such technology. A small nation as us, where we all know each other and we should get along together. We don't need something like an elections issue, a quarrel, to disrupt our country and to prevent progress. And so I believe in the PNCR and even the other opposition parties, I heard them chiming in as well. Even the small parties now are chiming in and are embracing. The whole country is embracing the issue of biometrics being introduced into GCOM. Why is it that only the PPP stands alone in their fight against clean elections at GCOM? And so to me, that is the greater issue there, other than the misinformation that they're trying to peddle. And they do peddle all sorts of misinformation. It doesn't matter what we say, you will just say whatever you have to say, and they will come out 2 seconds later to say that you said something. And so we've got to be very mindful of this People's Progressive Party.
And bear in mind, it was the very current vice president who, while they were in the opposition, who called for two things: a clean voters list and a biometrics. And now they're in power, and he is now recanting on both things, because it was him in 2018, 2019 who would have issued that call. And while the APNU was in government, who attempted to ensure that steps were taken by initiating the house-to-house registration process, which was then stopped by a court order by the PPP.
Look, Bara Jagdeo is a shameless, two-faced hypocrite. He regularly walks back. He says something today, and tomorrow it is something different. I think the entire nation has learned that over the last 10 years or so, or over the last two election cycles, at least from 2016 when he became opposition to now as the vice president or the de facto president. Every single major issue that he is pronounced on, he's walked it back, took a 180 degree, whether it's on the oil contract, the issue of renegotiation, whether it's GCOM, on the issue of a clean voters list and biometrics. I recall in 2016, he did an interview and he gave a barrage of reasons as to why biometrics and a clean voters list is necessary. I recall him saying that, your agent would be across the room and they're too afraid. Given in certain communities, they might be too afraid to say anything. So I don't know how exactly those issues have suddenly been resolved now that they're in government and they have a majority. I would call it a majority on GCOM, since the GCOM chairperson always vote with the People's Progressive Party on every single issue of consequence at GCOM. And so he is hypocritical. You cannot trust a single word out of that fellow's mouth. And, the People's Progressive Party clearly has some intention of remaining in government through electoral fraud. I can't see another reason why the leader, the de facto leader of your party would have been advocating for this. You have the money, you have the time to implement it, but you're doing everything possible to go against it and to lead the Guyanese people in a different direction. That speaks volumes of a volume about the party and his character as a leader within the People's Progressive Party.
I'm also looking at the comment section and I see someone there, stating that biometrics would be unconstitutional. But because these are the kind of things that, they go out and they tell their supporters when they're trying to defend not having a credible election with the use of these things. But biometrics are already a part of our system in one sphere, because when you are going to register for your ID card, your fingerprints are taken by GCOM staff. And those are the kind of things that you use to verify in a biometric system. So, sometimes you have to talk to the misinformation and, allow persons to understand that some of the things that are being peddled by this PPPC government is nothing but a justification to continue down a path where they can somehow find themselves being able to rig an election through the system that is currently available. And like you said, rightfully, any government, any people, any citizen who truly wants to see a result that resembles what is the reflection of the people's will look to have these systems corrected to ensure that when you go into office, nobody can say that you're squatting, or when you go into office, nobody can say you're illegal, or nobody can say, no, you rigged the election. These are the process that will allow for you to be able to go through that process without all of that drama.
If I can comment quickly on that particular comment that came in, I think I saw it from Gopal Ramatar or maybe some other person. Look, firstly, if biometrics is illegal, let's just pretend that there is an issue with illegality, as Anil Nandalal and the PPP put it out there as a distraction. Well, let's make it legal. Let's make it legal. What is preventing you from making it legal? At least not the opposition. You have 100% support from the opposition. So if it's a simple bill that we have to pass in Parliament, let's do it. If it's a constitutional issue, let's get it done. Let's get it done. You have our support. So that is one. But however, I'm no lawyer, but I do not believe that it is illegal. Because when you take it, if you take it as an additional measure to verify, you're not saying, and I see Nandalal went back to 97, the issue of the ID card. So he's using that to hoodwink the people into believing that based on the ruling of that case, well, then if you implement biometrics, therefore it would be illegal. No. If you follow the court cases and all the appeals, even at the CCJ level, it is very clear that GCOM can make certain rules to deal with their organization. So far as they created an Order 60 in our last election, they created a legal instrument, an Order 60, to have a recount. That is the power of GCOM. And so there is no way that you can say it is illegal for GCOM to implement a system that is a backup system to ensure that the person who is casting a vote is the person who should be casting a vote, and that they're casting it only once for a particular party. They can vote only once. And so the nation has to be educated about these facts and not be carried away by such propaganda and misinformation by the People's Progressive Party. But here again, this is another measure to plant into people's minds that no, it can't be done. So we will never be able to have biometrics as other countries have because it is unconstitutional. Is that a reason? Is that the reason? We can't update laws. We can't do anything. We're stuck. If this is a 1966 law, we're stuck there and we can't do anything about it. Nonsense. I don't know who will buy such crap from the People's Progressive Party. It's only those who are gullible and those who are blinded by whatever little pittance they're getting from the People's Progressive Party. But I want to implore on all the people of this country and nation, whether you support PPP, you support PNC, whichever political party you support. We must have a clean voters list and we must have a fair electoral system so that we move away from the kinds of issues and deep-rooted issues and disagreements that come after elections or during election period and carry on for a long time after.
I agree. All right, so we're rolling on to the other videos. I told you there are a few videos out here, that are making the rounds that I strongly believe that we must talk about. I'll have my operator play the next video.
Let me tell you something that you didn't know. During 2015 to 2020, the AP and new AFC government only spent $10,000 per person in the hinterland on access to clean water. The PPP government is spending approximately $30,000 per person on the hinterland to ensure they have clean water.
Another laughable one, Chairman.
There's so many issues there, so much that is wrong there with that simple TikTok video. What metric is being used? Is it how much money you spend determines the service that you get or the quality of service that you get? That is my first question. That's my first line of question, because we see all the roads that they're doing that is breaking up. You can say that we spent $100 million on this road, and Apno only spent $20 million. But does it mean that you give the people better quality? Did it mean that they get value for their money? So that is, this thing has context and what metric is really being used to gauge progress and the way how people benefit. But to go further, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that I would imagine that is an outright lie. If you go back and a simple Google could show you the amount of work we did in terms of water in the hinterland areas. We had collaboration, you would know, Shaneika. We had collaboration with the Brazilian government. And we did, I think, was 48 wells. A lot of the wells they are going back. They left these things to fall apart. Sometimes some simple.
And they didn't have in some places.
Yes, and they come back to say, and they put it up, propaganda again and optical politics, that X and Y communities have water for the first time. And when you visit those communities, they tell you that is not true. We went into the Rupununi after a particular well they had, and when we went to the area, the people said, no, it was your government that did this. They came and they did a thing for how many tens of millions of dollars, but it was your government who initiated this project, who started to give water in this in the particular community. And so we can't, I don't believe they can fool all the people all the time, with these little TikTok videos. The APNU AFC, that is one of our flagship projects. Water, the area of water. We did extremely well. The leader of the opposition always talk about it. We did extremely well managing water. We gave 24-hour water supply. You see what is happening in Georgetown. You see what is happening all across the country. Even as they claim to be spending billions of dollars in water treatment plant, the quality of water coming out your tap is worse. It is worse. So it's not how much money you spend. I agree that you have to implement these projects, but it is the management as well. It is the management as well of these projects over the period of time, over the lifetime of the project, and that is what really matters. So it's not how much money you spend. They have this thing. They say, well, you know, the citizens. Jack Dio likes to do this. Citizens in XY community benefit from $10 billion. Now you would think that $10 billion went into those persons' pockets. You know, hardly anybody even benefit from it. So we can't be carried away by these little TikTok videos. It is not true. I believe personally that we did a way better job than the People's Progressive Party. And I should raise this next point. They're trying to, or 2 points. For them, Guyana started in 2015. So there is only 2015 onwards. That is another point that I want to make. So whatever occurred without oil resources in 2015 to 2020 must be compared to vast monies that are coming in, the billions upon billions of dollars that are coming in now under the People's Progressive Party. You want to make an equal comparison there, if I could say that. Our budget in 2015 was 221 billion. Anybody could go and check that. 221 billion dollars. The budget before that under the PPP was small, and every other budget before that from 1992 onwards was smaller. So we increased the budget as we go along. When we left office, the budget was around $300 billion, just I think 300 point something billion dollars. The budget now is $1.142 trillion, and they have since come to the parliament at least 2 times. The last time I think is $84 billion, and the time before another set tens of billions of dollars. So that has since gone up to about $1.3 billion or so. How could you compare? How could you compare proper water service with little money, proper service, good quality water service in terms of 24-hour water system with however little you're expanding now, given the fact that you have all these billions of dollars, but still expanding very slowly and in a small way, and still not delivering the kind of quality water, the kind of service that the people should be getting from an oil-rich nation. You know, it's comparing chalk to cheese.
You know, I'm playing the video right now without sound because, you know, some of what was said may not be good for public consumption on these platforms. But this video you'll see shortly, the state of the water condition in Georgetown. And, you know, I rather suspect that she made that video on water in the interior because most of the persons who will be looking at her TikTok are in Georgetown. So she doesn't want to talk about Georgetown water system. She wants to talk about somewhere many persons may not have gone or seen or know what is happening to make such a comparison. And you know, it is ridiculous. I saw in the comments as well, people made the point that you're saying to me then, if I go to the Chinese and pay $10 for the same thing that you're paying $100 for at some other store with a fancy name, somehow that makes it better. Look at the condition of the water in Georgetown. As she is making a TikTok as a minister responsible for water, this is the condition of the water in this country. And she is proud on TikTok talking about water. And, you know, a point I want to make that you talked about there, because I was a part of the ministry that really did some work in the interior in regards to water. The Ministry of Natural Resources, along with the government of Brazil, did tremendous work in the interior locations, particularly Region 9, in ensuring that there were wells in places there were no wells before, and also in the Napi area to help make reservoirs so to cater for dry weather season. And that money was spent and persons were getting water, and you're comparing the amount, and you did minor works in many of those areas, and you're spending billions of dollars, and you're happy to report that on TikTok, while the citizens of this country are not just suffering from dirty water. They're suffering from the fact that in many, many days, you don't have water in the morning when you're ready to go out to work, or after you come home from work and you think you can relax and go and have a bath, there is no water coming through the pipe. In areas, they're cutting off water at 10 o'clock and 9 o'clock. These are things that you should talk about. And I always want to bring up the point when people talk about water. When Mr. Bash went back into office, they proudly sent home more than 300 plus workers simply because he felt that there was no need for all of these people. Like you said just now, the PPP operates as, the life of the country started in 2015, but those persons had to be hired because pre-2015, many communities did not have water. They did not have enough engineers to do the job that needed to be that was needed, and they had to hire persons to ensure that citizens receive water, not just receive clean water or potable water, but also to ensure that they got water 24/7 because they're paying for it. This is not a service the government is offering for free. Citizens have to pay every afternoon. You hear in the catchment areas, they spend money to send vehicles through communities to tell you a disconnection period is coming, pay your water rate so that you wouldn't be disconnected. But this is what the Guyanese people are facing while they're making TikToks about water.
You're absolutely right. And if you look at the quality, I would suspect this video would be from someone within the city. This is the usual thing.
This was about 1 week ago.
And the thing is, you will never hear the minister speak to this issue. She will not speak to this issue. You're absolutely right. These TikTok videos, they know that persons seeing them and viewing them would not be familiar with those communities and whether or not APNO would have installed some pumps in the area or of the works that the APNO would have done, or whether or not this system that they implement, the PPP implement, are even functioning. So they make these TikTok videos just as these optic, feel nice videos, and without any substance, without any fact. And if you fact check it, you might find that is something totally different. Take, for example, we can do a little math, as she wants to say, we spent $10,000 and they spent $30,000. I would like her to give us the math for Georgetown, for Region 4, which has the bulk of the population. Give us the math and let's see what you've spent, because the quality of water certainly indicates that something more has to be done. A lot more has to be done. So it would be interesting to know how many billions they would have spent in Region 4, which has the bulk of the population and which is the center of Guyana, the business hub of Guyana. And it would be totally ridiculous. It is totally ridiculous for the quality of water that you're getting in your capital city.
And we're running out of time so quickly. We're almost over. But I have one other video that I must play from the very minister here again. Take it away.
The PPP promised in our 2020 manifesto a path to prosperity that we will deliver 50,000 house lots in 5 years. The PNC AFC said it was impossible. I'm here to tell you that we have almost delivered 40,000 house lots and we still have another year to go. The 50,000 house lot promise will be delivered long before the end of 2025.
Now, this is a big one. Another big one. You know, under the comment section of this video as well, people did not let the minister go very easily on this, because many persons will tell you they would have applied for house lots since 2011, 2012, 2013, and we're in 2024. Many of those fitting the criteria to be priority in that ministry in regards to housing, and they haven't received any. And you know, it is funny because, and I want to ask the minister the question, are we counting the countless house lots and even the turnkey homes that your friends, family, and favorite has 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 of them? Are we counting that? We recall the incident of the person in charge of engineering, Mr. Umar, at housing, where he had several, it was pointed out there were housing, or alleged that there were many houses that were in his care in different names that were given out to all sorts of persons who already have properties all over the place and are renting them out as well. Is this included here? Because many citizens are baffled that you're making 40,000, 50,000, and their names have not been called as yet. I'm sorry, I don't have the footage, but someone did a little drive through a diamond recently, and we are noting that many of those little coups that they would have made, as we would have, citizens would have termed them on Facebook. If you remember that back and all that they had in terms of the amount and the size of the house, that we're seeing many non-nationals being given those properties. Are they counting that in their 40,000 and 50,000 amount? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, look, this is another area for misinformation, and they've been peddling it from the get-go, from the beginning of the term. They have been peddling how many house lots they have been giving. But if you go to those areas, you will get a different understanding. For example, here in Region 2, you have the Ondernemen phase 2 and 3 that they claim to have given out lots, and you have another area in Charity. But if you go there, one area is clear, the other two areas still heavily forested. I don't see, or I can't quite understand, how is it that you will say that someone has a house lot and you've not yet lotted out the portion of land. You've not yet cleared the portion of land. Mm-hmm. Yes, you may have taken monies for house lot, and you may have given that person, that individual, a promissory note. And so I would want to say, if the numbers, and we can't get to check the numbers because they're in government and we won't have the numbers. And you can't trust anything that they give to you. But I'm certain if we take it at face value and say, okay, they have 40,000, it will be 40,000 promissory notes. 90% of that persons would not have even identified that lot, much less begin any construction or to actually take ownership of that lot. So it's just, tomorrow they can wake up and decide that elections would be called in another few months and have some lottery or something for house lots. And you give everybody and say, oh, we would have achieved 50,000 our goal, 50,000 house lots. The reality is that you just take people money and you give them a note. It is not, you have not delivered the house lot to that person. And so that is a major misinformation being peddled by the minister. I'm certain that they cannot identify 50,000 house lots. You can't go to an area designated to be a housing scheme and tell me that you have 10,000 lots there or 1,000 lots. You have to show those lots and the persons who would have been allocated those lots. So that is something that the public again has to understand. And you're absolutely right. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands of persons still on that waiting list. If you say house lot is sharing in any particular region tomorrow or today, you will see a very long line of persons who don't have house lots as yet. And so it cannot be accurate. Those figures can never be accurate. The next point I want to make, again, is that they operate as though this country began in 2015. The APMO AFC inherited tens of thousands of persons without house lot, a long backlog going back to the 90s, which we began to clear. Which we hadn't the money to accelerate certain developments of certain areas. It costs some money to clearing land and developing it and all these things, building houses, turnkey houses. It calls for money, but we did what we could have done with the resources that we had. Now they have $1.3 trillion at their disposal. What are they doing with it? You know, I think they recognize that elections are on its way, whether they call it or not. It is inevitable in the next few months. And lest there be chaos, lest there be, all sorts of problems for them. But elections are on its way. In fact, March 2nd is just around the corner. The constitutional date is just around the corner. And so they need to say something to defend their track record, or at least prop it up to make it look good. But the reality is that Guyanese are still struggling, and the cost of the house lots as well. She wouldn't say that, but the cost is killing people. You call people today and tell them that they have to find $1 million, 1.5 million, or $1 million to pay down on this house lot in 5 days. I've gotten calls like that from persons who said to me that, look, I can't find this money. I waited so long for this house lot. Now it's here. I can't find this money in 5 days. It is ridiculous. And so those are the facts. And I wish that, again, people can pay attention to it and not be carried away by these misleading videos from the People's Progressive Party.
Yes, definitely. As we wrap up today, are there any other thoughts that you want to, deal with as we wrap up today's program?
All right, you've given me an open field.
Yes, I have.
You've given me an open field. I think I can deal lightly with one issue. I saw the Chronicle had my name in an editorial just yesterday or day before yesterday as me defending the track record of the opposition, and I think they're quoting from maybe Newsroom or some other media where Lincoln Lewis, trade unionist Lincoln Lewis, would have chastised the PPP, but at the same time said something about the opposition. I will stand by what I said and our track record. An opposition being in opposition is a complex issue. And until you are there and you're sitting in that seat, whichever seat, whether as the leader of the opposition or other seniors or juniors, whichever seat you're sitting in the opposition benches, only then you will begin to understand how complex it is. I believe that some of the little sentiments that you get from a few persons, and they are very few, if you look at it, they are very few. And if you look at the comments that they receive when they say these ridiculous things, I think their anger is misdirected. I think the PPP, because of the strain that people are going through, the cost of living, the corruption, the victimization that they're seeing, I think it gets people angry. And so it is very easy, you know, when you're in a fight, sometimes in school you're in a fight, and even the people that come and party, you're fighting everybody because you're angry at what is happening. And I think that in the few instances that is the case. We respect the unions. We believe that unions should always partner with opposition. And it doesn't matter which political party. A union forms part of that opposition. Union, organization, other NGOs, they have a role as well to play in terms of ensuring that there is transparency, ensuring that there is accountability, ensuring that they too participate in representing people and holding the government of the day, whichever government is in office, accountable and holding their feet to the fire. And so it is in that light my comments came. I believe I too can say that I think the unions should do more. I wouldn't be overcritical of them. But look, in the final analysis, I believe, and I did say so, the article didn't mention it. I said we all have a role to play. We all have a role to play. I do not believe this is the time to cherry pick on issues or to pick on other persons who are trying, who are doing their job. As an opposition, we can look at what we have been doing and our role as an opposition. Our role, we have to expose the government. I believe through these very programs and all the different programs that we have been doing just that. To the extent that Bharat Jagdeo has been urging his party to get on social media. They have paid persons, they're providing resources for people like Critic and other persons to do their shows to counter the opposition narrative. But what we have been saying has been resonating with the people. And so in terms of that, I can understand the need or the urge to clamor for more. I understand that truly, but we all have that role to play. We would have met with the powers that be very regularly. I remember when we just came to government, person said that, Jagdeo is on the television every week. Every week you have a press conference. Well, hello, we have a press conference every week, and sometimes 2 and 3 times. And we have so many other programs exposing. There isn't a single thing that Jagdeo and the PPP has done in opposition that we are not doing, at least on the moral side of things. I don't know if persons would like to see us do things that are not consistent with proper human behavior and things that will put the country in a position, and our own supporters too in a position that will not be beneficial for them. We have got to be smart about this. We have an elections to win. Our narrative is being carried out there. If you walk this country, people are talking negatively constantly, even in PPP strongholds. PPP strongholds. And so the fruit is there for the picking. And we don't need to be turning on each other or making negative comments. I welcome comments that will encourage us. I too believe that every one of us, I need to do more. Every single one of us can do more. But we need support. We need support from everybody at this time. We are months away from elections. And so if we come together as we did in 2015 and even in 2011, because we got more votes than the People's Progressive Party, I believe that we will be successful, we will be victorious. And so I urge in closing supporters, citizens, do all that is necessary, all that you can to help the opposition to lead us to victory, where we can deliver a better life for the people of this country.
Thank you so much, Chairman. And usually at the end of my program, I usually tell everyone that as citizens, we have a responsibility as well. And I'll add today that an opposition is only as strong as the people or the citizens who back them. Because when an opposition calls for whatever action, when an opposition takes a stand, it is the people who have to stand behind them. It is the people who have to continue to help us hold the government accountable in these times. And I urge Guyanese as we close today to continue to help us to hold the government today accountable and to continue to call for what is necessary for us to enter this next general and regional election in a better position, and for us to take this country back from the PPP so that all citizens can enjoy a better life and a more secure, healthy, and friendly Guyana for all. So I want to thank you once again, Chairman, for joining today's program. And of course, I want to thank our viewing audience today for joining us. And I do hope to see you next week, same time, same place.